Welcome to the Book Club, the show that spotlights undiscovered authors and their books. Now, here's your host, John Austin.
Thanks, Ed. And on this program, we have a terrific author on the Book Club. He's new to the Book Club, and he's going to discuss his novel, which is full of twists, turns, fun, and absolutely a fantastic ending that you will never believe and you will never guess. The book is called The Writer, and the very talented author is Sebastian Roberts. Sebastian Roberts grew up in Missouri, attended a British prep school. There's a story there that I'm not going to get into here, but he did, a British prep school. He earned a doctor's degree in marine ecology and served as an intelligence officer in the U.S. Navy. And this man can really write. Welcome to the Book Club, Sebastian.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, we're really happy to have you. I had such a good time reading this book. I can't tell you. I really didn't know what to expect. And anyway, it flowed. So we're going to talk about it. But let's begin with a very short synopsis of this very entertaining novel. The novel is called The Writer.
Well, basically, the book is about Walter Fleegle, who's a middle-aged guy with very, very low self-esteem. And as he reaches middle age, he takes on a new project in life, that of trying to become a writer. But he finds he's ill-equipped because of his low self-esteem. So the whole premise of the book is how he deals with trying to make that transition, build the self-esteem. And one of the things he does is he uses a pen name. He gives himself a pen name because Walter Fleegle is not really a good name for an author. So he hides behind this pen name and starts to develop this subconscious other self. And so the rest of the book is how he deals with all of that and tries to become the writer.
Yeah, and it really is hilarious. Not only is it, you called it a dark novel. I didn't think it was dark at all. I had such a good time reading it that I couldn't wait for the next chapter. So,
well, actually, I didn't call it a dark novel. When we were talking earlier, I said my girlfriend wanted me to write a dark novel because she likes dark novels, and the other things I had written were mysteries. So I invent this guy with the low self-esteem issues, and he's got physical problems and things like that. And I'm starting to try to write this dark novel, but I'm not a dark person.
Okay.
And the character just got away from me. So we ended up with this guy who ends up dealing with his pseudo-schizophrenia.
Okay. Well, that's exactly what it is. Well, let's talk about that. This is Wally Fleegle.
Right.
And he has a strange job that he's had for some time.
Right. He goes to college. He's got issues in college and everything like that. He gets a degree in English and in creative writing, and he can't get a job. So he ends up being a toll booth worker for 18, 19 years, and he gets to the point where working for the state of Florida, you get to retire at 20 years, and he's facing that. And one of his friends gives him this computer that he won and said, "Here, Wally, go write something, go chase your college dream," and that's how it all starts off.
Okay, there's a very funny line at the beginning, which you say he had very few women in his life. A couple of them took him home, but
they never took him home twice.
And he never understood why, anyway, that was the thing. So now here he is. He's a toll attendant job. And the one thing that it had great views. Because, he's looking down into the cars and vans and whatever going by. And he likes the views.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but when you go through a toll booth, you're looking up.
Right.
Well, that means he's looking down.
Right.
Every girl with a low-cut dress or anything like that. So he ends up seeing all kinds of things that one normally wouldn't see if you were in the car next to this person. Right. So that's actually one of the vehicles when he starts to write. He takes all of these different people that go through the toll booth, and he goes, in his head, he goes, I need to make characters. So who is that person and who is this person? And it might be, Dad on his way home, but he invents this sinister character to go along with it. And that's how he tries to stimulate himself.
Okay. And you mentioned his boss, Jack, who seemed like a very nice guy. And he gave Wally a gift, which was basically something he could write with a typewriter.
Right, a tablet computer kind of thing.
So he started writing. And he wanted to start with a working title, and he did. In fact, he started with 23 working titles.
Well, yeah, I go through a little of that because it was a lot of fun. Here's a guy, and and people do this all the time. They want to start a new career, a new profession, and they try and they fail, and they try and they fail, and they try and they fail. But the key to success is to not quit trying.
Right.
So as T. Lath Reddy said, that failure is the whetstone of success. And so that's one of the themes that runs through here. But the neat part about having done that was as he tries to develop his own writing skills, I, as the author, get to write the outlines for like 18 different books. And I've got one reader who said, I don't care about this book. Finish the book that Kelly started in chapter 12.
Okay, and we need to talk about Kelly because now Wally is Wally, and he figures he needs another name for a writer, and he comes up with Kelly Blanton.
Right.
Okay, and so he's the guy who supposedly, as we're starting, is going to be the writer. Gets interesting from here. It's interesting from the beginning, I can tell you. This is very funny. Okay, so now he's invented this Kelly Blanton, and now he needs to know what the traits are that this new author is going to have.
This is a mechanism, and we all do it. You're sitting around the house in your shorts or whatever, and you put on a suit and you feel like a different person. Okay? As an author, especially for Walter anyway, he gets his pen name, and it allows him to feel like a different person. And so he starts to be able to have the kind of experiences as this new person that he never could as the timid and shy and retiring Walter.
Right.
So Kelly becomes very active and very outgoing. And Walter's okay with that because it's not him doing it.
Right.
It's Kelly doing it. Walter's not doing it. So that frees him from his 25 years of reticence.
Right.
And it allows him to go and drive fast cars and things like that.
Well, in fact, as he says, one of the traits is with Kelly, he drives fast cars and deals with even faster women.
Well, he's trying to give Kelly the kind of experiences that an author should have in order to be able to convey something. And so, he says they're having a discussion, Kelly and Wally are, because a lot of this book happens, I think, in their head.
Right.
So they're having a discussion, and Kelly's going, well, I don't know anything. I'm brand new here. And Wally says, well, we need to give you some experiences. And, well, what does a good writer have? What do famous people have? What do exciting people have? Fast cars and fast women. So they go on from there, and they have a series of experiences that will give Kelly something to write about.
Right. In fact, he starts with a new wardrobe, a haircut, and as he's doing this, he finds himself. He doesn't. I don't think at this point yet. He doesn't realize this, but he's fastly turning into Kelly. So Wally is going to eventually be part of Kelly.
Well, Well, I don't know about that. I don't want to give too much away, but
okay.
But what happens is the strength of Kelly grows as Walter allows Kelly to do the kinds of things that Walter's afraid to do, like go skydiving. Walter would never go skydiving, but Kelly can.
Right.
So as that happens, the Kelly character becomes stronger, and Walter becomes more in the background.
Okay.
But then Walter doesn't like that, so he starts to argue with Kelly, and they get this back and forth of things inside of their head about, well, we should write about this. Kelly wants to write about something, and then Walter will go, no, we're not writing about that. We're going to write about something else.
And again, this is the same guy, but there's a couple of things happening. First of all, there's a dinner cruise because he says. Wally says, well, he would go on Kelly would go on a dinner cruise with a date. And so Walter actually goes on a dinner cruise with a date. And the woman's name is Charisse,
right,
who he doesn't know.
That's right. He says, well, what do famous people do? What do active people do? Well, they go on cruises. So, well, I can't go on a cruise ship, so I'm going to go on a dinner cruise. And there's actually one funny little part of the book where Walter calls up and says, I'd like to make a reservation for the dinner cruise. And the woman on the phone says, how many? And before Walter can answer, Kelly says 2. So now Walter's stuck. He's got to find a date. So he goes to a dating service. And he doesn't want to hire somebody from the service, if you know what I mean. So he goes to one of the online clubs where
right,
you can, and so he finds Charisse. And so they go out and actually, and it gets a little bit fun to follow.
Oh, it was. This is very fun.
Walter doesn't go on the cruise. Kelly does.
Right.
because Kelly has the self-confidence to go out and dance with a woman he's never met before, whereas Walter wouldn't be able to do that. So then at the end of the thing, they have a real good time, and Charisse says, you know, am I going to see you again? And then Walter pops back in and says, I don't think so.
Yes, he's finally got a woman who wants to see him again, and he's scared.
He's scared.
Yeah, right. So, okay. There's a very funny bit, I thought. He goes to a gun class, and there's a very funny bit where the gun falls, and there's good. You want to tell that story? I mean, it's actually a plastic gun, but people don't know that when it falls.
Well, what happens is, you know, Kelly goes to learn how to shoot because right. Walter's afraid of guns.
Right.
So they go into the class, and there's a couple other people in the class, and I think the piece you're talking about is there's two college girls who had gone because they were new in town and they were insecure and things like that. So they're going to take their gun safety class. Well, when you do that, you get this big, heavy, blue plastic fake gun.
Right.
And what the instructor will do is he'll put you in different situations and see how you react so that when he gives you a real gun, he can be assured you're not going to shoot him. So the one girl picks up the gun and drops it, and the other girl turns and goes, what are you doing? And they end up pointing their guns at each other, which I personally have seen happen.
I'm sure you have. But it's very funny in the book. And they don't, at that point, they don't know. They think they have a live gun, and it's really just a piece of plastic.
Well, no, it's bright blue plastic.
Right.
So they actually know it's not a real gun.
Okay.
But that comes later.
Yeah, they do get the gun, and they go out to shoot. Okay. In fact, the next thing that happens is they go to the shooting range, and and Wally and Kelly are shooting, and it ends up that they buy a gun.
They do.
Yeah,
they do, and I built these kind of little things in there just see if people are paying attention. So here's Walter and Kelly, and they go out and they get their gun. They take the course, and as soon as they buy the gun, the guy behind the counter says, "Would you like to apply for a concealed weapons permit?"
Right.
And Kelly's going, "You're crazy," or Wally's going, "You're crazy." See, I can't even keep them straight.
I know. Well, they couldn't either. So,
but Kelly talks him into it, you know, but that's the way it is. You can get that license within a couple of days of actually purchasing your first gun.
Right, and then there's another scene where actually they go to this racetrack, and Kelly takes over and says, "I'll drive," and because Wally's thinking of driving 30 miles an hour. These people are doing 120, and so Kelly says, "Hey, I'll take over," and he gets the Alfa Romeo and goes crazy.
Okay, you kind of mix two things together there.
Okay,
the Alfa Romeo is when, excuse me. Kelly goes to test drive a car.
Right. Because
he wants to see what it's like to own a big fancy car.
Right.
So he talks his way into being able to do the test drive with the salesgirl, Lisa.
Right, Lisa, right.
The other story is when they go to the racetrack, and in off season, and you can actually do this, you can hire somebody to drive you around the racetrack.
Right.
Well, you're right. The only thing that Walter's ever driven was his little Vespa scooter.
Right.
So, you know, he thinks 55 is fast. And Kelly's going, "This is nuts. You're crazy." So, but they work up to where he's going 190 mile an hour on the track.
In this thing.
But Wally couldn't do that, and that's the whole balance of the whole thing is having Kelly be able to do the things that Walter can't do,
right,
and bring him out.
Okay. Now we have to stay with this book because some of the things that occur between now and the end of the book, obviously you're not going to give them all away, but there are a few things that I think are very funny. Incidentally, we're talking to Sebastian Roberts about his very entertaining novel, The Writer. Now, the next thing that happens is, maybe we should mention that Wally hasn't taken a vacation in 13 years or something, had no idea how much money he had in the bank, and it turned out he had $130,000 or something. He
finds it out when he goes to the car dealership to test drive the Alfa Romeo, and they do a credit check before they do that because, as the salesman says, you know, if they didn't have some kind of screening process, every kid that just turned 18 is going to be in there wanting to test drive an Alfa Romeo.
Right. Okay.
So that's how he finds out, yeah.
Okay, so he's got – so anyway, now the next thing Jack, his boss, says, take a vacation, which he does. So he's going to take an 18-day vacation, and he's going to go to the Virgin Islands, and this time it's going to be on a sailing vessel.
A charter.
Yeah, 70 foot, I think. This is a small. Okay. Okay. Now, as he's doing this, now he's got a new title for one of his books, and he's going to name it The Cruise. Now, they just got out here. They're just getting on the cruise. But things start to change here now, because now real life is starting to mimic some of the things that either Kelly or Wally is writing about.
Right. But what Wally does is he convinces Kelly to practice writing. So they start writing these book summaries. And in The Cruise, they write that one of the cruise ships, similar to what they're on, a charter cruise, runs aground, and all the survivors are there, and you have to have the whole rescue effort and everything like that.
Right.
And what you're talking about is by pure coincidence, depending on whether you believe in that. The next morning, when they round East End of St. Thomas, there is a sailing ship, and it's not a cruise ship; it's a smaller boat that has run aground on Buck Island, which is south of Charlotte Amalie down in St. Thomas, and then they have to go rescue him.
Right. So so now he's starting to think, gee, now there's another funny bit I thought here, because the next thing Wally decides to do, and I guess this was really Kelly who decided to do it, he's going to pay $8,000 for scuba lessons, and he knows that there's supposed to be like 6 women on this that are going to be in this thing, and he's in his mind, he's got 6 cheerleaders that are coming on this with him. Right.
This is one of the other exercises. Walter writes the story before they go, and I don't want to scare off any future scuba divers, so it's only 800, not 8,000.
Okay.
But they do have a resort course. That's a true thing where you can get in the water on one day. And so Walter imagines these 6 cheerleaders, and then they're going to go diving, and then Kelly is going to write afterwards. What they're doing is testing the theory that you write better about something that you know about than something you can only imagine.
Right.
So beforehand, nobody's been scuba diving. Afterwards, Kelly will have gone scuba diving because Walter's too afraid to go scuba diving.
Right, right.
So, but the next morning, after they've written the test summary,
right.
Instead of 6 cheerleaders, there's 6 elderly women from a bridge club in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, which she's not really interested, except it turns out there's one other woman.
One other woman.
Giselle.
Giselle shows up.
Okay. Tell us about it. Her.
Well, Giselle is one of the first places where Wally and Kelly really start to argue, because Giselle shows up and she becomes the love interest of the reality scuba diving instead of the storybook that they're writing. And in that part, Kelly wants to pursue her as a love interest, and Walter's saying, no, I don't need a fling. If I get anything, I want to have a permanent relationship. And this woman is from, I forget where she's from, New Jersey, I think. And she's going to disappear.
Right.
And so this is a point where the things come back together, and Walter is able to convince Kelly. He says, look, we share the same morals, even if we have different outward expressions of those things. So you can't take her to your room.
Okay.
And he wins that argument.
Right.
Okay. So Walter can still win on a lot of the real fundamental personal character things, but Kelly is able to bring the excitement to the game. Okay.
It's an interesting thing at that point, because Giselle asks Kelly what he does for a living, and he doesn't know what to say, so he says
he's a money changer.
You got to be quick to come up with that one as a told guy, right?
Well, that's what he does. He changes money.
That's right. Okay. So now they are fighting in the book. They're fighting over, or they were thinking about fighting over, this woman, I think, whose name is Lucy. And there is no Lucy. Lucy is actually in the story, but the Giselle is real. And they've kind of gotten to the point where they're interested in Giselle because they're interested in the woman. It is one guy, folks. This is still one guy. Okay, but as you're reading it, you kind of think, well, wait a minute, maybe okay. So we move on now. There's another hang gliding incident, and there's a rescue at sea. And again, this kind of is something that they have written about, and suddenly it's real. I mean, it's different, but it's very close.
Yeah, and they end up arguing about the coincidence. But yes, Walter writes about hang gliding because he's never been.
Right.
And he does a really bad job of it. And then Kelly is supposed to go hang gliding, But the oddity that you're talking about is Walter makes up a story where one of the women who's hang gliding, he doesn't know her, her hang glider breaks and she falls into the sea, and the instructor saves her and all this other kind of stuff. And when they actually arrive at the place where they do the hang gliding, which is over at Red Hook on the east end, they get there just as they're rescuing this woman.
Right.
And so Walter had written that she's a nun, so that Kelly couldn't go after her. And in the real world, when it actually happens, it turns out that she's a Lutheran minister.
Right.
And they argue about whether a nun and a minister are the same thing.
Honest to God, I can't. I mean, I had so much fun reading this book, and we're going to continue because it's not that much longer. But I want to talk about a couple of other things that come up. There was one bit, and I think it was when they were parachuting out of the thing, and they got to the where they were getting out, and they said he was going to throw up, and he backed off, and then he went, and then he actually jumped, and that was okay. All right, but now Wally is starting to say first of all, the things that are happening there, they're starting to submit books for publication,
right?
But also at this point, Wally really wants to meet a real woman. And so he starts a new story. Walter finds a woman, and in that is the question is, there's a grocery goddess, and is she the one?
Yeah, and that's actually what Giselle does. She awakens this desire to have a companion in Walter. So then Walter, he couldn't sleep one night. So he says, well, I'm going to write and see if I can resolve this desire to have a female companion. And he invents how he meets this woman in a grocery store where they're walking around, and she's real hot, and he's still, all awkward and everything like that. And they reach for the same brick of cheese, and that's how they meet.
Okay.
And then, go ahead.
Okay, well, all right. Now we're in a situation where there is another meeting, and this is a bookstore, and this is a real meeting. And it's suddenly there's deja vu with a woman named Jacqueline and the one that was the grocery goddess, Tatum. And they are suddenly, even though they're different, but they're very similar.
Mm-hmm. And Jacqueline's last name is Tate, so the grocery goddess is Tatum. So there's a connection right there. But in the grocery store, in the bookstore, Walter goes in because he decides he needs to have a better writer's guide.
Right.
And so he and Jacqueline end up reaching for the same book at the same time.
Okay.
And so what you're getting at is they meet in the same way as he had written about in the story, even though it was a different venue, right, shall we say.
Right. Okay. Now, this is the romance actually begins, and this is a real one, and I'm not taking it any further because I don't want to spoil the rest of this thing for anybody. But from this point on, and you have to get this book. You have to get this book. You'll be very happy you did. The novel is of great fun. It's very well written. It will leave you with a smile on your face and a terrific twist at the end, which I guarantee you won't see coming. I'm very good at this. I read so many of these books. I had no idea that this was coming. So anyway, Sebastian, tell us how they can get hold of this book.
Well, it is available on Amazon and on Barnes & Noble as a Kindle or a Nook.
Okay.
And it is available in hard copy through my website or the website of my partner. And the website is tomcuba.net. That's TOMCUBA, like the island,
right,
.net. And you just scroll down there. There's a bunch of other titles in there, and the writer is going to be down at the bottom of the first list.
Okay. You're also going to be at some kind of a thing here, right?
Yes. Yeah, there's a book fair on the 17th of September.
Okay.
In West Shore Plaza. It's going to be right there in the mall.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly where. It's kind of a big place, but I haven't seen exactly where it's going to be. And it runs most of the day.
Okay.
It's a long book fair. It runs about 10 hours.
Okay. We only have like a minute and a half left, but I got to ask you, how in God's name did you come up with this plot?
Well, like I said, that I invented the character and I put him in a situation, and I actually talk about this in the book. This is Kelly at one point Wally at one point is teaching Kelly how to write a book. You invent a character, you put him in a situation, and basically it got away from me. I was having as much fun writing it as you apparently had reading it, and I just let it go.
Well, it is wonderful, and the section there, the incident you're talking about, here you've got Wally is giving tips to Kelly about how to write, and I mean, I'm thinking, what? These are the same people. But anyway, it's just a wonderful, wonderful book, and so we get the book, will you, folks? It's called The Writer. We've been talking to Sebastian Roberts about his novel, The Writer. Now stay tuned for the second half of the program right after these messages.